Guys, welcome back. Well, Micron told us that the constraints in 2027 were going to be stronger than ever. And honestly, we probably should have listened because what we're seeing right now from the earning prints of Lumentum, Supermicro, as well as CoreWeave, they all are validating that not only is the quarter showing significant growth in AI demand, but the future outlook is strong as ever. We also saw AMD in their investor day today. They also validated the AI demand moving forward and gave strong signals for the future outlook as well. So the data today confirmed one thing to me. The one undeniable truth was that physical compute, that demand is continuing to outstrip supply. And also that the high density memory, it remains the primary bottleneck in the entire AI revolution. So tonight we're going to examine all of those earnings prints that dropped after the close of the bell. We'll take a look at what AMD said in their investor call today. Let's take a look at Micron's price action. In fact, let's look across all of the Fab Five today. What did they do in the trading action? What are they doing in the after hours right now? And then I want to show you two massive signals, one from Mizuho and one from Nvidia, that could be a secondary demand signal for Micron as we move forward overall. So that's what we're going to cover in today's video. I want to dive right into the data, but if you haven't done it yet, make sure you like and make sure you subscribe to the channel. But guys, let's get started. Let's first take a look at the same graphic we took a look at yesterday, just to show you the major events today. And you can see the Tuesday column. We had an investor event for AMD at the KeyBank teleconference, a technology leadership forum, the same conference that Micron delivered their remarks yesterday. And then we're going to dive into the bottom three earnings. So CoreWeave, Supermicro, and Lumentum. What did they show? What were the strength of those earnings, and how are they validating the memory sector overall? And then I want to dive in, as I mentioned, and just take a look at Micron and the other members of the Fab Four. How did they trade today? What can we expect when we for tomorrow at the opening bell? But let's jump in and let's take a look at first AMD. So you can see in this article, AMD's technology leadership forum, and their main takeaway from it is that AI demand is lifting the outlook for AMD overall. A few things that I have highlighted. It said AMD said at the conference that its server and data center business are entering a new growth phase, and it's helped by rising demand for AI inference and agentic computing. So we scroll down here for some of the key takeaways. AMD said its server business grew more than 50% in the first quarter of 2024, 70% in the second quarter, and more than 80% growth in the second half of 2024. I actually think these, you'll see is a common theme in this article. For some reason, they put 2024 as opposed to 2026. I don't know what happened overall, but this individual who wrote the article just clearly had a typo in how investing.com carried this forward. But when you see 2024, just realize that it means 2026. But they went on to say also that AMD has updated the server opportunity and market opportunity to $220 billion by 2030, the CPU market opportunity to $220 billion by 2030, and said that agentic workloads could represent 2/3 of that total. If we dive into some of the financial results that they reported, they expect server growth of more than 80% in the third quarter and the fourth quarter of this year. And for 2027, the company is guiding to at least 70% revenue growth in the server business. AMD said its data center business, including AI systems, is projected to grow as much as 100% in 2027. So just think about what that would mean for the memory sector. What do you think it means when the data center business for AMD is going to grow by 100%? What type of demand do you think that will have for high bandwidth memory, for SSDs, for DRAM overall, for all advanced memory? When you're seeing this scale of growth from AMD, we know the demands that their Helios rack and their other products have for high bandwidth memory. This is a great signal for the memory sector. Just take a look at AMD, what it did today. The stock was up by 1% today. In the after hours, it's pretty flat. It's about 36 cents up right now. So not as significant. I mean, I think the comments came out this morning, if you recall. I think they presented, yeah, there you go. It was presented at 11:30 this morning. So the impact on the stock from those comments was clearly today. In the after hours, it's a bit flat. But let's take a look at some of the earnings that came today. Let's start with CoreWeave. So CoreWeave absolutely smashed their earnings, and they're seeing the impact of this in the after hours right now. So CoreWeave, the shares rally on smaller Q2 losses, AI infrastructure demand surges. All three of these earnings I'm going to show you are all demonstrated they're demonstrating a growth in AI demand. So you can see here with CoreWeave, excuse me, they reported a smaller than expected second quarter loss, and revenue topped Wall Street estimates. So the company reported a loss of 1.14 per share compared to what they were estimating was $1.41 per share, but revenue came in at $2.58 billion, above the consensus estimate of 2.56, and revenue more than doubled from 1.21 billion a year ago. The results underscore how rapidly spending on AI computing infrastructure is translating into demand for specialized cloud capacity, with revenue more than doubling, and its contracted backlog is reaching 104 billion. But here's the other piece. Take a look at this. Not only is their contracted backlog at 104 billion, and that was at the end of June. Take a look at what their backlog is, or their customer commitments were in early July. 25 billion in early July. So that's 104 in contracted backlog through June, and 25 billion through July. That is a massive sign of demand overall, a huge signal, and all of this will be a very bullish kind of translation right over to the memory sector as well. And what does this mean for CoreWeave? What are they doing in the after hours right now? The stock is up 15%. You can see today closed at just about 2.5%, picked up almost $14 right now in the after hours. It's trading at 104.19, up 15%. And it's also spilling over to Nebius. You can see here on the far right, I'm circling here. Nebius is up 5% today, up 7% in the after hours right now. So not only was CoreWeave's results fantastic, that they dropped, that revenue growth that they showed, the contract, the backlog, what they've booked in July, but it's also spilling over to the other Neo Cloud member of Nebius. Take a look at the next one. Let's jump over and take a look at Supermicro. So Supermicro's, it tops the Q4 profit estimates, and shares are rising in the after hours. So Supermicro beat Wall Street's profit estimates in its fiscal fourth quarter as revenue came in below forecast. So this was an interesting one. It was a mixed kind of signal. Their earnings per share just smashed expectations across their board, but their revenue was just below expectations. If you look here, the earnings per share came in at $1.70. It was expected, or analyst estimates were 71 cents. So that absolutely crushed what the analyst estimates were. Now, their revenue came in 11.12 billion. The analyst estimates were 11.73, but it didn't matter. It was the surprise kind of earnings per share result that has just shocked the market and is moving this stock in the after hours as well. But let's take a look at some of the results. The company said that it's expanding beyond GPU servers into enterprise storage, networking, and liquid cooling systems. So they're the record year for the company. So revenue rose to 39 billion from 22 billion a year earlier. The company has been riding demand for AI servers and related data center equipment, but it is also trying to broaden its business mix towards a higher margin enterprise storage and CPU-based products. In the fourth quarter, revenue for Supermicro rose by 93% from a year earlier and 9% from the prior quarter. But if we take a look, this is the biggest piece I highlighted right here for you on the screen, that it's kind of moving the stock, and what Wall Street has a positive sentiment for these earnings. Even though they missed their revenues, the fact that their non-GAAP EPS just absolutely crushed consensus, what analysts were expecting. Like I said, they were expecting anywhere between 71 to 99 cents a share, and the company reported $1.70. So that is a surprise of almost 140% for the stock, and that's what's moving the positive sentiment right now for Supermicro, even with the revenue falling short of 11.1, where it was expected to be 11.7 billion. So it was off by about 600 million or 5%, but the stock is still moving in a positive manner because the earnings beat was much larger than the revenue miss. And that likely helped support the stock and gave it more kind of positive sentiment that we're seeing right now in the after hours. So let's see what it's doing right now. Last time I looked, it's up by about almost 8%. So the stock was up today by 0.7%, 22 cents in the after hours right now at $2.50 roughly, trading at $34 a share. This was a mixed result for Supermicro, but the Wall Street clearly liked how they smashed their earnings per share by 140%. And then finally, let's jump into the last one, our optical player. Remember, we have Coherent that is reporting tomorrow, but we're seeing right here with Lumentum that AI demand is driving record margins for the company above 50%. So let's see a few signals over here. You can see Lumentum is showcasing exceptional growth driven by surging demand for optical components and systems that are used in artificial and AI data centers. Revenue more than doubled year over year, while non-GAAP gross margins, they crossed the 50% threshold for the first time in the history of the company, making a significant profitability milestone that management, they hadn't expected to achieve it at current revenue levels. So this is the 8th consecutive quarter of top-line growth and 3rd straight quarter of greater than 20% sequential expansion, reflecting the company's position in the center of AI infrastructure build-out. You can see the revenue where it has grown. Just take a look at a year ago. It was at $480 million in the quarter, over $1 billion this quarter. We're seeing gross margin jump from 38% to over 50%. Earnings per share, 88 cents for Lumentum to now at $3.23. This is a strong sign of a company that is growing at a rapid rate based on AI demand right now. And what is it doing for the stock? Right now, we see the stock was up 0.87. It was up $7 today, 0.87%. But in the after hours, it's moving at about 3.5%, $28, almost $29, trading right now at about $8.50 a share. And now we're seeing just incredible earnings from the company, just showing the type of demand there is right now in the marketplace. So this was a great earnings. I'm expecting to see very similar type of earnings they had dropped on the street with Coherent tomorrow. And I think this will continue to move the entire optical sector throughout the entire rest of the week. But let's jump over and take a look at Micron. What did it do today? What did the Fab 5 do across the board? Micron up by $7.50 today. So it actually had a really nice finish throughout the day. Let me see if I can show you that. Let me close this and take a look. You can see how the stock just traded today. It actually, if you remember, we had that kind of cascading finish here, and we did have a tiny bit of a gap up this morning, flushed down here to a low of 844 today, but then the stock kind of rallied. It actually got down in the afternoon to the low of the day of 846. So 844 was the low, but look at that nice kind of just solid, consistent rally throughout the day of where it finished overall at 868. So this is a nice sign of support for the stock, hoping to continue to see this momentum at the opening bell tomorrow. And that's what we're seeing in the after hours right now. It's been going back and forth, quite honestly, in the after hours. It's been down a couple dollars, up a couple dollars. So it's been relatively flat, but right now it's at 870, 871 a share. It's up $2, a little over 0.25%. If we look across the board, you'll see that SanDisk had a nice day today. It was up close to 3%, picked up $33 on the day. In the after hours right now, it's up another just over 1%, another almost $15, trading at $12.85, $12.86 a share. We look at Western Digital. That was the one outlier in the group today. It was down by 41 cents. It closed the day at $437.93, but in the after hours, we're picking up another $3.51. So the stock is trading at $441 a share. Seagate was up almost 2.5% today, $19, just over $19.50. It closed at $820.52. In the after hours, it's picking up another $3 and it's trading at $823 a share. And then finally, if I scroll down to the SK Hynix ADR, it had a positive day today. You can see picked up over 4.5%. Over $6 today, closed at 141.65. In the after hours, we're picking up a little more than 0.5%, almost a full another dollar. So we're 142.50. Out of curiosity, let's just see what the Asian players are doing right now. We see the Nikkei 225 is up slightly. Let's see what Samsung. If you take a look at here, SK Hynix is up by 2.5% in their trading, and Samsung's up over 5%. So that is a nice positive momentum for the memory stocks. Let's see if that continues to move in their market right now. And hopefully that will continue to finish strong. Let's see what Kioxia is doing in their market as well. Let me pull it up just to get a full outlook. Kioxia is up about 1%. So we're seeing good momentum with the Asian players right now. Hopefully that continues, and we see that momentum carry over into the U.S. marketplace at the opening bell tomorrow, because right now Micron is looking good in the after hours, and the other members of the Fab Five are looking good as well. And let's take a look at a couple signals today. First, see this more article out of Barron's. It's from Mizuho. They are actually reiterating their buy rating on the stock, and they're reiterating their price target of 1375, I believe. And you can see the title is Micron Shakes Off Its Slump. I think it was 1375. 1375 was the rating. And we'll go through some of the data. It says Wall Street thinks that things will get better when the market understands just how bad the memory chip shortage really is. This is something we've been talking about on the channel. We know we have seen differing reports, but the reality is this market is continuing to be significantly constrained and will be throughout 2027. It's exactly what Mizuho is saying here. Arguably, very little has changed about Micron's fundamentals because memory prices keep rising. Wall Street still expects earnings to increase for the next 3 years, at least despite higher artificial intelligence spending. The stock now trades at a forward price to earnings of less than 6 times for Micron. Mizuho analyst sees the current slump as an opportunity. He reiterates the outperform rating on the stock with a 1375 target price this week after meeting with Micron executives. He says we believe Micron sees DRAM and NAND. The market will be tight well through 2027, with any incremental supply only coming in 2028 and still no meaningful change to supply-demand imbalance. So investors could become more confident if the company can sustain more than 80% gross margins. And this analyst believes that with the long-term supply agreements, those margins will be able to be sustained, and Micron will be able to continue to have premium for their future products. And they also call out the CXMT kind of threat or the worry about CXMT in the market. The analyst says that the Chinese worries are overblown and should dissipate as it becomes clear that CXMT will focus on domestic Chinese supply and has limited capacity to move into the high bandwidth memory. So it's something we have been talking about in this channel. I continue to bring these articles and these sentiments and these confirmations to you because the reality is this is the reality of the market. It's going to be continue to be constrained. It's going to be continue to be dominated by these 3 players, and supply is not going to be able to get into this market until 2028, 2029 timeframe. So 27 is going to be a more constrained year than we have this year right now. And then finally, I want to show you this last article around Nvidia and saying who wins the most in Nvidia's $500 billion private capital deal. You may have seen this article. It came out this morning, but essentially Nvidia's deal is to mobilize over $500 billion in third-party capital with Apollo, BlackRock, Blackstone, Brookfield, Goldman Sachs, and KKR. It reframes how AI factories are built and financed. Basically, by turning GPU compute into a standardized investable asset class, NVIDIA addresses severe liquidity bottlenecks. And they talk about who the winners are of this new deal. Obviously, the primary winner is NVIDIA because they're offloading the debt that they have on their balance sheet right now, and it safeguards their free cash flow. It's exactly what the author called out. It says NVIDIA emerges as the primary strategic winner because the framework shifts lending risk entirely off of its balance sheets. Under the prior arrangements, NVIDIA acted simultaneously as the hardware supplier and the debt guarantor. And so that created concerns around this secular financing overall. And you could see that was the concern, that NVIDIA was effectively owning its own demand. The burden now sits with this consortium that we called out of the companies above here, the third-party capital companies, and it's not on NVIDIA's balance sheet. So NVIDIA guarantees asset quality, not the debt, turning the bear's depreciation worry into the enabling feature. So Bank of America estimates that NVIDIA's prior vendor financing exposure was at roughly 15% of its $470 billion in projected free cash flow over 26 and 27. Shifting that load to private capital frees up NVIDIA's massive free cash flow for aggressive stock buybacks. And the consensus models project NVIDIA's buybacks could be at 73 billion in 2026, 106 billion in 2027, and only 36 to 37% of free cash flow compared to Nvidia's pledge to return over 50%. So there very well could be even higher buybacks than they're calling out right here as consensus, because Nvidia, as it mentions, has a commitment to return over 50%, and those consensus models are well below that. Who are going to be the winners in the AI factory? So they go through and they call out a few, obviously the neo clouds and the power operators, but I want to get to the secondary beneficiaries here, which are the memory and the optical supply chain. So what it says is the $500 billion capital pool successfully accelerates physical data center construction. Component suppliers further down the supply chain will stand to benefit. So the memory manufacturers will be a huge secondary benefit of this. And we're talking about Micron and saying this, the unconstrained data center construction maintains tight supply dynamics for high bandwidth memory and enterprise SSDs, supporting elevated average selling prices. And then the optical interconnect. So the companies that we talked about earlier, so Corning, Coherent, Credo, Applied Optoelectronics, Lumentum, as AI clusters expand to hundreds of thousands of chips, copper wiring hits the physical distance and speed limits. Accelerating data center build fuels demand for high-speed fiber and photonic components. So this is a big bullish sign for both the memory and the optical supply chains overall. So those are massive stories that I just covered, and those are the things I wanted to talk about in today's video, because as I mentioned, Micron told us yesterday at their investor day that 2027 was going to be significantly constrained, and it was going to be a very strong year for the company. And we should have listened. All of the signals that we're seeing in the marketplace right now point to one thing, that AI demand is going to be strong, not only throughout the rest of 2026, it's going to be strong as we move into 2027. So as we wrap up things for today's video, today's results, they all painted one thing, a unmistakably bullish picture for AI hardware infrastructure. CoreWeave doubled its revenue, and it's reporting a staggering 104 billion backlog and 25 billion backlog in July alone. Supermicro generated 11.1 billion in quarterly revenue and crushed their EPS estimates. And Lumentum, it beat top and bottom line expectations while raising forward guidance. Micron remains extremely well positioned in today's hardware earnings. They confirm strong price power and a multi-year demand visibility for the memory sector overall. So we're seeing strong movement for these companies right now in the after hours. Let's see if we can keep it moving into the opening bell next week. And I expect for a positive day across the sector tomorrow. Guys, let me know your thoughts below. I hope you had a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.